Bible Study. I'm your host, Bartholomew Orr, and I've had the wonderful privilege of pastoring this church now for 31 years. And Jessica, in my 31 years, I've never seen what we are dealing with today. But I'm glad you have joined us. And look, go ahead. Make sure you like us and share this as well. Invite some others to join us. This evening, I have the wonderful privilege of speaking with my favorite member, Jessica Reid. And what's your official title, Jessica? You're a
clinical psychotherapist.
All right. So that means she's deep in this mental wellness issue. And that's what we're dealing with tonight, the church and mental wellness. I'm grateful that God has really given Brown everything that we need, surrounded us with great therapists. When I was driving in, Jessica Mays mentioned, sent me a text message about tonight. She's another one of our therapists. I guess that's what I should call y'all, therapists. And even David Donaldson, great friend, is still seeing people doing all of this time. So the church and mental wellness. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And to kind of just kick us off for a Bible basis, I want to look at 1 Samuel chapter 21. And by the way, if you don't have the notes, earlier you should have received the notes, but if you didn't get the notes, if you text the word BMBC or the letters BMBC to 31996, the notes will come right to your phone. But David in 1 Samuel chapter 21, 1 Samuel chapter 21, David is at a low point in his life. And he's at a point where he's been rejected by King Saul. Matter of fact, King Saul is out to kill David. He is running for his life, and he ends up running to the Philistines. And the Philistines were his enemies at this particular time, but he runs to the Philistines. And in 1 Samuel chapter 21, David literally, verse 10, I'll just read this. 1 Samuel 21, verse 10. So David escaped from Saul, went to King Achish of Gath, but the officers of Achish were unhappy about his being there. Isn't this David, the king of the land, they asked? Isn't he the one the people honor with dances, singing, Saul has killed his 1,000 and David his 10,000? David heard these comments and were very afraid of what King Achish of Gath might do to him. So he pretended to be insane, scratching on doors and drooling down his beard. Finally, King Achish said to his men, "Must you bring me a madman? We already have enough of them around here. Why should I let someone like this be my guest?" So David left Gath and escaped to the cave of Adullam. Soon his brothers and all his other relatives joined him there. Then others began coming, men who were in trouble or in debt or who were just discontent, until David was the captain of about 400 men. Therapists, you all mentioned about there's only so much somebody can deal with.
Right.
Within a year's time, and my goodness, it hit a point of depression if you have like death and sickness and disease.
Distress after distress, unexpected, that's kind of the catalyst for what we would consider trauma. And
that's what we're in right now. I mean, when we think of COVID-19, the start of 2020 was our year of unstoppable. Right. I mean, it was like unstoppable. We had the shirts and everything.
Right.
COVID-19 came and
put a
halt to, it stopped us in our tracks in terms of just the social distancing and everything. But David, the things that he went through, I mean, the Bible says that he escaped. And I think a lot of times people try to escape when it comes to mental wellness.
Right. They do that in different ways, and so a good way, and I know we'll probably get into it today in talking about some healthy ways of escaping versus using the things that we typically do, like food and maladaptive behaviors, things that are going to, give us adverse effects. So,
you mentioned food, probably addictions, my goodness, alcohol and things of that nature. But David, he escaped. He used this fright. Matter of fact, after escaping, he became afraid of where he was, and then he ends up in a cave of Adullam, talking about at a point of depression. I like to think of this as David wasn't just acting, because I think David had some clinical issues going on. Hey, he was, but you know what? We don't like to talk about it, but I think a lot of people, if they sat on your couch, would probably be diagnosed with some type of mental disorder.
I try to tell people, 'cause, there's a stigma that's associated with it, but we all have a nice mix of, good things that have happened to us and unexpected things, and it makes us who we are today. It's not bad. It's just what has happened.
It's who we are, the highs and the lows.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. And so that's why I say that, when it comes to mental health, since mental wellness is not automatic, we must fight with his might. In other words, we have to be determined that even as I'm facing coronavirus, as I'm facing the death of loved ones, people getting sick, that I need to acknowledge the fact that I can have mental issues that are going on in my life, and then accept getting help. What are some of those things? So you have, because you have a whole 6 things in your emotional. Run down that list.
Okay, so I'll run down it quickly, and then if you want me to elaborate, we'll kind of go through. So earlier I shared the emotional skills toolbox, and so that looks like a nice box that will help you get through things to calm you down when you're in distress. For example, now unexpected things happen, and you're like, my life's out of control, my body's in crisis, what do I do?
Right.
Okay, there are a couple of things you can do. You can soothe yourself. This is comfort with your senses. So doing anything that's going to engage your senses, your touching, your hearing, your sound, your taste, and your smell. The second step is distraction. The purpose of this is to take your mind off the problem just for a little bit, right? So even if we know we can't change what we're going to be like in the next month, we can do something in the next hour or the next day that's going to, change that a little bit. Opposite action. So this is doing something opposite of your impulse that's consistent with positive energy. If you're upset, you might want to go do something that's going to make you laugh.
Yeah.
If you're anxious, you might want to go do something that's going to make you calm down. It's just the opposite of whatever you're feeling, to change that state just for a little bit. The next step is emotional awareness, and so these are going to be tools for identifying and expressing your emotions. So what helps you talk about your feelings? What helps you understand your feelings? Is that writing? Is that reading? Is that, listening to a song? Like, what does that look like for you? It'll look different for everyone. Mindfulness, tools for entering, kind of grounding and centering yourself. What does that look like? Yoga, meditation.
I've been exercising more. I have been exercising. And, it's therapeutic.
Yes, it makes you feel better. And the reason why it does that, Pastor Orr, is because it releases hormones to your brain that's going to help you regulate your emotions. That's why after you have a good run, you're tired, but you also feel good.
Feel good about it.
Absolutely. So some tools like that would be journaling and, tuning into like your emotions and things like that through writing. The next step is mindfulness. Oh, I just said mindfulness. Sorry about that. The next one would be relaxation, right? So that could be grounding exercises, breathing exercises. And if you don't even have exercise, you can just tune into your breath right where you are.
Yeah.
Inhale and exhale, right? Think about things that make you feel grounded. What makes you feel strong? Trees, rocks, weighted paper mates. Like when you think about what's important to me, what makes me feel like I can stand through the world, like what's symbolic of that kind of thing. And then the last one would be a contact list of support people or reassurance when you're needing that. And we always want to start with family and friends. And I know you may know earlier to make sure that it's safe people.
Hey, because there are a lot of folks are toxic at this time.
Right.
And talking to them is going to probably depress you even more.
It's going to exacerbate those symptoms, and we're trying to alleviate them for sure. So family and friends that are safe, therapists if you have psychiatrists, hotlines, and I know we referenced the crisis.
I didn't realize that, but that was that crisis text number is 741-741. So you can just simply text hello or text the word crisis to 741-741. So a great opportunity of being a part of that crisis plan.
And then once you get that, you put it all together. And the most important part is if you don't want to put it in like a little box and decorate it to your heart's content, keep it somewhere visual so that you have everything in one place, everything you need. But it's going to remind you that I have some tools that I can use that are going to help me get to actually where I want to go.
And I see that even with David at this point in his life, as he was facing this battle that he was going through. Here's my thing. First of all, just what you've just said, we need to speak up. We need to speak up, to know that our feelings are real. Your emotions are real. What you're going through, the highs and the lows, the uncertainties. And so you have to be honest enough to recognize your need. I think a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves that I'm going through. We feel as if I admit something, it's going to say that I'm less spiritual than I ought to be. But we have to be honest enough to recognize our need. But then we have to be humble enough to ask for help. I think one of probably the hardest job is probably somebody picking up the phone
the first step.
And calling your number to say, look, I need you, Jessica, at a time like this. So we have to be humble enough to seek help. And then here's sometimes, and this is the rough one, but sometimes we have to be hurt enough to accept help. I think a lot of times until somebody hit rock bottom, they don't cry out.
Right.
It's almost like somebody that is drowning. You almost have to let them go down a couple of times before you can actually get in there and rescue them.
Yeah, that's true. And that is, it's hard for some people to admit the truth externally, but internally, they know and they feel it.
You know something is going on. So look, tonight, tomorrow, ask for help. Ask for help. The church is here to support you, to encourage you during this time, and that's why we're praying that through the devotional blogs, through the songs and the scriptures, and I appreciate what you said, through laughter.
Yes.
So hey, put out some, if there's
videos.
something real, some funny videos, some funny pictures, share those online and just allow people to come and to and to laugh along with you. I'm thinking of one in my mind even now. And so, you need to make sure that you speak up when it comes to your mental wellness. So not only speak up, but here's the second thing, surround yourself. Surround yourself. You talked about this toolbox, this emotional toolbox, creating that crisis plan with safe family and friends, therapists, and so forth. Well, David, when he was at this low point, his brothers, others began to come alongside David in order to encourage him at this time. And so we need to surround ourselves. Who is in your corner? Who are those folks that you can call on? People that will ask you the tough questions. Absolutely. People that you can be honest with, that you can be yourself with. Because, Jessica, a lot of times, you have to put on this kind of tough face. Yes, a mask on. But you need to surround yourself because in jealousy, others may push you away. And we have that oftentimes even in church with the competition. People are sometimes jealous. You find that in David. The people were jealous of David. In fear, sometimes you can pull yourself away. You're just afraid to connect with others. You're afraid of what they might say, how they might handle you. And then, unfortunately, because of stigma, sometimes society put us away. And I want to, let's talk about that because when it comes to church, oftentimes the stigma with church has been, if you're spiritual, you shouldn't have any problems.
Right. And I've seen so many shirts that say it's okay to have a therapist and go to church. And that's so important to know that even if you're going from it from a spiritual standpoint, the Bible says God created wise counsel, right? That even for you have people under you that can help you out when you can't do everything. Therapists, councilmen, deacons, everybody in the church, we're fingers to one hand, right?
And that's why I like to call it a marriage between the church and mental wellness and others. And here was one of the questions. How do you tell a family member that they need help? So I guess you see it in someone else. So how can you be honest to that person that is really there but don't realize it themselves?
I think the most important thing is knowing that you cannot help someone that's not ready to be helped. However, you can state the facts from a loving standpoint. So that may look like, I've noticed when this happens, this is how you respond. I'm concerned about that. Can we talk about that? You've talked to me 3 months about this and I can't help you. How about I connect you with Jessica? Jessica does X, Y, and Z. That kind of thing.
I like that. Those are some nice approaches. Yeah. And that way you're not beating them over the head. Yeah. Hey, something is wrong. You need to get some help.
It's like, I love you and I'm concerned. And maybe it's not anything, but let's just check it out. If you got a cold for too long, what are you going to do?
That's right.
You're going to the doctor.
Yeah. So in a loving way, the Bible is going to say it like this in the book of Ephesians. Paul says we ought to speak the truth in love. So when someone know that you love them, that you're coming to them in order to help them, they are much better able to receive that. How do you tell a family member you can't rescue them all the time? So they're looking for you to be their savior.
Boundaries, right? You got to have boundaries. So you have to know your limits and your level of tolerance. And so it's not telling them that you can't rescue them anymore. It looks like, what does rescue look like now? So the first time, for example, you need to borrow some money from me. You come to me and I directly give you that $50. Well, the next time we're going to have a plan to still get you the money, but it's not directly tied to me, right? So your boundaries will help you kind of navigate how you can support them.
And setting boundaries, and I like to even say set limits.
Yeah.
In terms of how much you're willing to do, how much you're willing, where you can go, and you really need to know your own limitations as well.
First, yes.
Because even in counseling, our rule of thumb is if I have to meet with you for more than 3 times, you need Jessica. Because I don't have the time nor the skill set to take it beyond that point. And so that's the reason why we keep a list of y'all around here, and that we are constantly sending people your way because we realize that we just cannot do it all by ourselves. So you got to ask for the help, but then you need to avoid isolation. And that was that second point in terms of surrounding yourself. Avoid isolation. Now, Jessica, here's a tricky one because we are in self-contained. We're quarantined at home. And yet, so what would you say, how do you avoid isolation even at a time when we're supposed to be isolated?
Right. So when I mentioned earlier, finding ways to still connect. So even if you're practicing social distancing, you're taking a walk, you're riding your bike, you're utilizing FaceTime, you're utilizing text messages. Like I told you, we wrote some letters, like doing some things that help you connect to other people in so many ways. You don't have to be physically present, but you can still be emotionally connected. Calling
on them, FaceTiming, texting people. Look, you make sure that you avoid isolation, ask for help. And then here's the third one. We said simply stay put. Stay put, because that's what David is going to do. David is going to, he needed that reassurance, and he stayed put. He realized that at the end of the day, I can come back to my faith and know that I can still put my faith in the Lord. So wherever you are, David ended up in Gath. We don't know where you are right now. Maybe you're at a point of depressed, where you feel as if, I cannot get any lower than I am right now. Or maybe you're at a point of desperate, where you feel as if there is no place for you to go at this particular time. Or you're even doubtful, thinking that there is no hope for you. We want you to know that if you anchor yourself in the Lord, stay put in your faith. This is not the time to get away from your faith, but it is a time to draw even nearer to the Lord. There's a wonderful scripture in the book of James that talks about if you draw nigh to God, He will draw nigh to you, that we can resist the devil and that he will flee from us. And so it's so important then that you anchor yourself in faith. How do y'all deal with faith as it relates to even when you all are counseling someone?
So one, we acknowledge that faith looks different, right? Everybody believes in something, or they're motivated by something, and so we kind of take that, and like you mentioned, even with anchor for someone that has one perspective may mean something different, but it's still giving you hope. And so that's the most important thing. How do we foster hope? How do we help you see that there is light at the end of the tunnel? And we're just going to walk alongside you as you do that.
Now, if you have some questions for Jessica, look, I have the expert in the house tonight. Would love for you to get those questions in. But I think it's so important then, with David, here's what we learn. You must fight with his might. Mental wellness is going to take work. It's going to take effort, especially getting through this tough time. And yet Christ is with you every step of the way. What we quote here at Brown, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. So we have to fight with his might, but make sure that you say no to the fright. Say no to the fright. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to admit what you're going through, and then say no even to the flight. Don't escape and run away, especially if you're going to be running away and escaping to some of the negative resources that are out there. Right. And we mentioned resources earlier. I want to kind of go through my list. Just, I like to alliterate everything. But when I come to mental wellness, here are my resources for you. Prayer, that spiritual resource, is nothing better than talking with the Lord about what you're going through. But then people, because God has given us people. Proverbs 17 is going to talk about as iron sharpeneth iron. Proverbs 27:17. A man ought to sharpen the countenance of his friend. So people is another resource that we can lean on at a time like this. Sometimes you need to pause. Sometimes you do need a break. And Jessica, now I must admit, everybody's talking about COVID-19 and all of the negative things, but in some ways, it has given me an opportunity to pause. Yeah. My desk is final. I can see the bottom of my desk now because I've had an opportunity to kind of just focus in on the desk. But sometimes we need that pause because we're running at both ends and we don't realize just how much we're burning ourselves out.
Right. Burnout is something to definitely keep in mind, to make sure that don't forget about your basic needs, right? When we are stressed, the first thing we want to do is forget about those basic things.
Oh my goodness.
I've been up past my normal bedtime, so I know tonight I have to get in bed.
Right. Rest, eating properly. And then the pill. I believe medication, sometimes you have to rely on medication. Talk about medication, because I know when you start talking about the pill and medicine, especially with mental, there's another whole stigma about that.
So there is a stigma attached to medication, and I think, like you mentioned, for some people that is necessary, right? So medicine looks different. For some people it's a pill. For some people it's just traditional therapy. For some people it's their faith. If you know that this is something that works for you, then you want to stick with it. If it doesn't, you stop. So I always ask my clients that are kind of hesitant, what do you have to lose, right? So if you go and you're sick and the doctor says, hey, you need to do this, they're like, well, my doctor said I need to do this. But when it comes to our mind and our heart, we're a little bit more resistant to that. When everything starts here.
That's right.
So you really can't afford not to make sure that you're checking in with yourself, just like regular maintenance. If bare minimum you go get your teeth cleaned, every 6 months they recommend?
At least, yes.
So you should be checking in with your mind and your heart at least, twice a month or twice a year,
Well, the pill, and then that place. If things are just so overwhelming, I even encourage people, try even the intensive getting away to connect at a time like this. So, but the church mental wellness. When you were going through your list earlier, Jessica, I actually put some scriptures along with each one. So go back through that list of 6 things again. I'm going to give a scripture for each one of those.
So number 1, self-soothing, comforting yourself with your 5 senses.
So we said Proverbs 17:22. Laughter is just like good medicine. So making sure that you're doing those things that make yourself feel good.
Right. Yeah. And I can, for example, with the touch, for kiddos, that may be a stuffed animal. For an adult, it may be a stress ball. Anything that's tangible, that feels good, temperature, thing like that. For hearing music, humidifier, sounds of nature. I love going outside and hearing the wind blow, simple things. When you're looking at things, what's visually pleasing to you? Is it art? Is it a picture of a loved one? Is it your favorite color? The taste, teas. Make sure you're getting warm fluids in. That's what they told us, right, with COVID. Mints, fruit, anything that's going to engage that taste. And then the smell. I love essential oils.
Oh, I keep my diffuser going at home.
Me too. I got
tea tree, frankincense.
That's your favorite.
Hey, some lemon. Mix it with some lemon and Nature's Shield. I'm just giving you one of the little recipes that I kind of put together. But I mean, it helps you. It really calms you, and so soothing self. And then the second one, distractions. So the scripture that I used for that one was Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. The things that you think of, whatsoever things are good, virtuous, lovely, think on those things. So instead of focusing on the negative, you want to focus on the positive things as well in terms of distraction. Number 3 was
opposite action. Yeah, so doing something opposite of the impulse that's consistent with a positive emotion.
So Proverbs 18:21, knowing that the power of life and death is in your tongue. And so sometimes you have to speak things and you have to do things, like you're saying, instead of just giving in to what is natural at that particular time. In faith, speak life, do life, go out and enjoy and have laughter even when you're feeling sad, that opposite action. The fourth one was
emotional awareness.
So how do you express your emotions and being willing to express your emotions? And you mentioned writing and journaling. Writing cards. I mentioned how Glenda Knight and Pearline, Mother Pearline Crump sent me some cards in the mail. And believe it or not, I got them on the day when I was stressed out. So I needed it just at that particular time. But David in Psalm 61 expressed himself, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. So you need to be able to express yourself through the emotional ways. And then number 5 was mindfulness.
So things are going to, the key point in this is whatever's going to help you be present in the moment. So you're not worried about tomorrow. You're not worried about the next moment. You're tuned into right now. So what's going to help you do that?
So we said Matthew chapter 6, because in Matthew chapter 6 is going to go through a whole list. Don't worry about your clothing. Don't worry about your food. Don't worry about tomorrow. Worrying is not going to add anything, but if God took care of the birds, he can take care of you. And then the 6th one was creating that crisis plan.
And that's just reassurance that's going to help you support yourself when your coping skills haven't worked. So maybe it's a little bit beyond just what you can do on your own and you need a second hand. So
Proverbs 17:17, a friend is even loveth at all time, a brother is born for times of adversity. Proverbs 27:17, surrounding yourself, because as iron sharpeneth iron, so does a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. Now, during this time, are you still seeing clients? Or?
I am. So I've moved majority of my practice online for telehealth to meet the needs of those that want to practice social distancing and things like that.
Telehealth.
Yes, sir.
See that? That's a new word for me tonight. Telehealth. I know Jessica Mays had mentioned that she's providing her services virtually as well. So do y'all use Zoom or do?
Yeah, so there's Zoom, there's DoxyMe. Those two are HIPAA compliant. There are a lot of more. I think someone said something about VC, but there are so many ways, and they've made the laws a little bit more lax this month to meet the needs of people. So even for some insurance companies, they're like, okay, you can call them, you can use certain different mediums. I did a class on ethics during this time, and FaceTime was even one of the ones that was allowed. So it's just kind of looking up for your state and seeing what's appropriate to meet the needs, because we're at home but we still need the services.
So you know what is interesting, so church is virtual now during this COVID-19 as we try to keep everyone safe. But now it's good to know that even when it comes to mental wellness, your mental well-being, you can virtually get the help that you need with such wonderful therapists like Jessica Reid, and would love for you. Jessica, what is your information? Yeah.
So my practice name is Reid Counseling and Consulting. I'm right down the street here at Church Road. My website is reidcounseling.com, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at _read by Reid, and then on Facebook at Reid Counseling and Consulting.
Well, I appreciate you being here tonight with us, and thank you for joining us. So again, I understand, and please go back and share these Bible study. Here's the wonderful, my goodness, the fact that we are doing all of this virtual stuff. Now it is out there. So in the future, look, you can't sleep and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. pull this back up. Share it with someone else to let them know that when it comes to the church and mental wellness, there is a marriage. It goes together. You're not saying that you're less of a faith or you're less, but when you're doing this, you're making sure that you are surrounding yourself with all of the tools that you need to cope through times like this. It's April, and already our president has extended this social distance through the end of April. So that looks like for us as a church that, for another month, we're going to be out, staying home, and it's really been stressing the importance of staying home. So unless you just have to get out, stay home, stay in, so that you can protect yourself, protect your family, to make sure that you're staying safe and that others are staying safe. Thank you, Tammy. I hope you're staying home there in San Antonio, Texas. My favorite runaway member, Tammy Brown. So I appreciate you joining us tonight as well. I was thinking about that. Look, I just want to remind us, because the New Spirit magazine is out. And since the New Spirit magazine is out, one of the things that is on the back is Brown's Contending for the Faith that was coming up in April. But of course, we've had to cancel that because of COVID-19. Sunday is the first Sunday in April. It's the first Sunday in April, and it's also Palm Sunday. And on first Sunday, of course, we do communion on first Sunday. So here's what we're doing for all of our members and even for our guests. We're going to actually have a drive up where you can pick up communion supplies. I mentioned Sunday that you can always go back to the way we used to do it. You're young, April. You probably, Jessica, you probably don't remember this, but I remember when it was saltine crackers and Welch's grape juice. The deacons came to church a little early and put on their gloves and they broke up the crackers. So that was one of the things I loved once I started preaching and I got ordained. Man, I could get back there and break up the crackers as well. But if you're going to stay home, by all means you can use your crackers and your Welch's grape juice. But if you want the legit supplies, you can actually come by the church. They're going to be available for pickup at both campuses tomorrow from 9 to 1 and from 5 to 7 p.m. So in the morning, 9 o'clock a.m. to 1 p.m., you can come by, and we're keeping our social distance, but people will be handing you those supplies from 9 to 1 as well as 5 to 7, both campuses. And then Friday, we're actually doing it from 9 to 1 p.m. as well. So we'd love for you to get communion supplies so that you can be a part of worship with us this Sunday as we worship together virtually. We'll be doing it live, and I've had a wonderful time. I don't know if you've had opportunity to watch it live, but it's
connected to our TV. You can use your HDMI with the computer and watch it on the big screen. So.
Oh wow! And I guess they got Apple TV and all that stuff that technology. So we can come live, big size right into your home. But make sure you're tuning in. Saturday 6 o'clock p.m. Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m., Sunday, 11 o'clock a.m. Would love to have you to join us in worship. And again, we're going to be doing communion virtually, and I look forward to all of this. So thank you again, Jessica. We're keeping our social distance here, but thank you so very much for joining us tonight. God bless you. Remember, hit that share button and make sure you get the word out.